We got some major breaking news as it just has been officially announced that Jimmie Johnson has bought an ownership stake in Petty GMS. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. As I just reported a second ago, there is a major blockbuster deal that just happened in NASCAR as Jimmie Johnson is going to be returning to NASCAR, and he has entered an ownership agreement with Petty GMS Motorsports, and also will drive in select races for Petty GMS Motorsports in 2023. The plan for Jimmie Johnson is to run around 5 to 6 races in 2023, and the first race he is going to run is the 2023 Daytona 500. The rest of the stuff will be revealed at a future date. We don't know all the details. So let's go through some of the details. We don't know the car number. We don't know the paint scheme. We don't know the sponsors. Let's first talk about the paint scheme reveal. I think Carvana is going to be the sponsor that Jimmie Johnson's bringing on. Carvana has been extremely loyal to Jimmie Johnson for the last year or so. They've had big partnership, and he basically rejoined Chip Ganassi Racing, a big partnership with Carvana, so I think they're going to join with him as well in NASCAR. I know some people think there's a possibility that they could have brought Ally over, but Ally has a major commitment with Hendrick Motorsports through 2023, so if they ended their contract after 2023, they probably would have come over, but they're saying Ally's staying with Hendrick Motorsports through 2023, so that is not going to be happening next year. Also, let's talk about what the number will be. I would expect the number will likely be 44. Now, currently, NY Racing owns that number, but I think the Petty GMS Motorsports will be able to easily get the number off of Jonathan Cohan. They'll probably pay a ton of money to Jonathan Cohan, take that number 44. They'll probably take another number that kind of in the upper range, and they'll probably run the number 44. They can run a different number, yes, maybe like the 40 perhaps, but I think the number that they're going to run for Jimmie Johnson is the number 44. Now, some of the races that Jimmie Johnson does want to run, like I said, he wants to run around 5 races in 2023. Of course, we already know the Daytona 500 is one race he does want to run. Another race he would like to run is North Wilkesboro. Now, currently, according to Bob Pockers, he's not at this point eligible to run it, but NASCAR probably makes some new restrictions, basically kind of makes some new rules in regards to eligibility, so Jimmie Johnson can run North Wilkesboro. But obviously, another big question is that he still also wants to run IndyCar in sports cars as well. I would still think there's a really good chance that Jimmie Johnson will run the Hendrick entry, Garage 56 entry at Le Mans later this year. And I would also think there's a good chance to run some other IndyCar races and probably will run at the Rolex 24 with Action Express Racing once again in 2023 if that does become possible, because there's some talk there could be another entry for Action Express this year in the Cadillac branch. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But he also still wants to run part-time in IndyCar next year. Now, likely he will not run the Indy 500 because of if North Wilkesboro, it basically does get approved to run North Wilkesboro. He's probably not going to run the Indy 500 unless he can get some special exceptions, but there's going to be qualifying going on during the North Wilkesboro weekend for the All-Star race, so he's probably unlikely going to run the 2023 Daytona 500 unless they can find a way to make him run. There's a chance he could run, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, some other things to note is that some other kind of details came out. Jimmie Johnson said today in the media center during the media availabilities for this announcement, he said that he's really excited about this and really excited, and said that one of the big reasons he decided to make this move is because that his agent that he has is connected with Eric Jones. Eric Jones, who currently drives the number 43 for Petty GMS, and he started talking near the end of the IndyCar season on this move. Now, talking more about Jimmie Johnson, let's first begin talking about Jimmie Johnson just a little bit. It's now official. There's been a lot of rumors for the last month or two that Jimmie Johnson has been interested in running to run NASCAR races. He's had interest in running to run some other race like Chicago Street Course. He's talked about wanting to try to do the double, the Coke 600 and the Indy 500, and a lot of that people thought it was going to be a Project 91. Jimmie actually had conversations with Justin Marks in regards to this when speaking to media today, but then he said the Petty GMS offer came up, and that kind of came to fruition. Now, obviously, there are 5 races that Jimmie Johnson does want to run. Let's first talk about that. Jimmie Johnson, I think, like I said, he'll probably run 5 to 6 races next year. He doesn't know the other 4 races. I think Jimmie Johnson will get approved to run North Wilkesboro and probably be locked into the All-Star race. Since Jimmie Johnson, of course, has won the All-Star race and is a Cup Series champion, he'll probably get approved to run that race. I also think he's going to run Chicago Street Course. That's a race Jimmie Johnson's had on his bucket list, so that makes 3 races that he potentially is going to run. The 4th race, I would love to see Jimmie Johnson honestly run a Gateway. I think that'd be really, really fun for him to run a Worldwide Technology Race Week. That'd be really fun to be in my hometown. That would be fun, but he has raced there before. I think there's a possibility he runs a Coca-Cola 600. That's a race I think Jimmie Johnson would like to run, and he's kind of had initiation he would like to run the double. And finally, I think he will have a chance of maybe running the Southern 500. Legendary race. He's won the Southern 500 back in 2004 and 2004 and 2010 or 2011 or 12 or whatever year it was. He's won a couple Southern 500s as well. I think he'd like to try to win it again. Or maybe he decides to run the Indy GP weekend. Who knows at this particular point. But this is absolutely huge. This will be the first time that Jimmie Johnson has competed in a NASCAR event since the 2020 championship race at Phoenix. Obviously, Jimmie Johnson, like I said, has had interest, but it's really great to see that he is coming back and running. Now, like I said, the number will probably be 44. Let's talk about some other things. How competitive do I think Jimmie Johnson will be in his select starts? Petty GMS Motorsports is a team that has really showed some major progress this year, and they're making some big moves. So while Jimmie Johnson has not raced in a couple years, I think he'll do pretty decent. I think he will make the Daytona 500 in 2023, though I do think you're going to have a lot of competitive teams. Where you know that Beard Motorsports, they'll be running the 2023 Daytona 500 with Austin Hill. Julio Castroneves, he's in conversations. Rama Trackhouse Racing in the Project 91 car. And we already know that Zane Smith is going to be driving the 36 entry. So you're going to have at least a full field confirmed. And you're probably going to have other drivers announced. So he's probably going to have to race his way in the Daytona 500. But I think he'll be able to easily make the Daytona 500 with the pace and speed. Especially since they've been really good on super speedways. Look how fast Eric Jones has been on super speedways. I think he's going to do really good in that race. Another big question I have is how big of an ownership stake does Jimmie Johnson have in the team? Obviously, I think it's a lot bigger of an ownership stake than people realize. Some think it's minor. I think he could have a 50% stake, and I think a big reason why he could have a major ownership stake, and it was a partial ownership stake, but I think a big reason why Jimmie Johnson probably has a major ownership stake in Petty GMS Motorsports is because of the fact that Jimmie is running select races. You wouldn't be running select races in your team, or running full-time for that matter, if you didn't have a pretty big ownership stake. So Jimmie's got a pretty big ownership stake right there. Let's talk about Petty GMS Motorsports as a whole as well. I think Petty GMS Motorsports currently is headed toward a really bright future, especially with Jimmie Johnson coming into the team next season. They're going to have Noah Gragson joining the team in 2023 with Luke Lambert as a crew chief. Luke Lambert and Noah Gragson have really gelled together very well, and they have a really good chance to win the NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship tomorrow afternoon. They've got a really good chance to get it done tomorrow evening. They've won 8 races this year, and they're both really good people in the industry. So I expect Noah Gragson to have big things next year, and I think his fitness regime is going to get a lot better as well, especially with Jimmie Johnson joining. And then you obviously got Eric Jones, who signed a multi-year contract extension with the team. He's a really talented driver. I think he's a top 10 driver in NASCAR, and I think he will do an excellent job driving for the team next year. I think Eric Jones, in all honesty, could win a couple races next year, potentially get his first multi-win year, because he has not had a multi-win year in the Cup Series. He's had 3 career wins, 2 of those being the Southern 500. So he's been really good in those crown jewel events. He's won some pretty big events. And honestly, he probably would be not a big shock if he wins the Southern 500 in 2023. I think Noah Gragson is also joining at the right time. Now, going back to him for a minute, I think he's joining at the right time in joining Petty GMS Motorsports. I thought it would have been a really bad move for him to join this team. But looking at him getting some of that Cup experience he's had, which he's done decent in his Cup starts, he hasn't done fantastic, but I certainly think he's done better than other drivers like Ty Gibbs. I think he'll be a mid-pack driver, contend for the playoffs, probably around 20 points next year, but I think he'll do a little bit better now, especially with Jimmie Johnson joining the team next year. Petty GMS Motorsports is headed toward a bright future. I think they are the next Trackhouse Racing. Trackhouse Racing, of course, in their second year, has a really good chance to win the championship with Ross Chastain, and they've already won multiple Cup Series races, 3 Cup races already this year to be exact. I think Petty GMS Motorsports, of how much they've improved this year, I think they're also starting to kind of head toward that direction as well as an organization. It would not shock and surprise me by the next 3 or 4 years if either Noah Gragson or Eric Jones is winning a Cup Series title with Petty GMS Motorsports and winning multiple races. It wouldn't shock or surprise me either if Noah Gragson does get a win as well in 2023 with Petty GMS Motorsports. I think of how competitive the field has been and how much more competitive I think Petty GMS Motorsports is going to be than I initially thought they were. And trust me, I thought they were already going to be extremely competitive with Jimmie Johnson joining the team next year. I think that this combination in this pairing is going to gel very perfectly and gel really well. this is an awesome move. And just, it's fascinating, awesome also to see the fact that Jimmie Johnson is returning. We've had so many legends return to the sport. We had Gray Biffle make select cup starts at NY Racing this year. They haven't run since Talladega, and it's unclear if they're ever going to return next year or not. Probably not anymore, since the 44 car is probably not going to be around. You've had Jacques Villeneuve, a Formula One champion, make a start. You've had Kimi Räikkönen come back and basically run his first ever cup start. Danny Kvyat's come in. You've had new teams come in. You've got conversations of Julio Castroneves and Marcus Ericsson, among other people that have shown some pretty big interest in wanting to come in. And I think, honestly, in all seriousness, this is we're headed toward a really great future for this. So I'm so excited to see what's going on in regards to that. I think the future of Petty GMS currently is promising at the moment, and I cannot wait to see what's going to happen with this team going into 2023. I think the next few years, for sure, this team is going to be set. There's a really awesome future for the team, and this is big. Jimmie Johnson coming back to NASCAR already is incredible. And let's also not forget, you've got two of the greatest NASCAR drivers ever teaming up. In my opinion, the two greatest drivers of all time, Richard Petty, a 7-time champion, and Jimmie Johnson, a 7-time champion, teaming up next year. I think it's massive for the sport. I think this is absolutely incredible. And Richard Petty, of course, who's 85, he won't be around for much longer, so you need someone to come into the team. And also think about Maury Gallagher. He's almost 70 years old, too, and Mike Bean's almost 70, so you need a younger presence to come in. We would also be seeing a lot of younger owners. You got Justin Marks, who's around 40 years old. Denny Hamlin, who's 42, will be 43 next year. You got other young owners coming into NASCAR, and it's just phenomenal and incredible. And now Jimmie Johnson is joining the ownership stake. And even Dale Jr. has shown interest in wanting to run Cup race again, and maybe 2024 is a very big possibility. But in all seriousness, in all honesty, I think this is absolutely incredible, absolutely phenomenal. This is happening. This is one of the biggest silly season bombshells that we've had all year so far, especially with how big this is. I think this is incredible, and I cannot wait to see what Petty GMS Motorsports is going to do. And I think next year, with how many good teams are coming through, I expect big improvements from RFK, Petty GMS Motorsports, and Kaulig. I think you're going to have the most competitive Cup field we've ever seen. I wouldn't be surprised if we get more than 20 winners next year. We've had 19 this year. We could get a 20th this weekend, and I think there's a really good chance we could get more winners next year. So I'm pumped up, really excited, and it's amazing that Jimmie Johnson is officially coming back to NASCAR to not only race, but also basically own the team. So that is for today's short NASCAR news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Link description below for that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. How excited are you to see that Jimmie Johnson is officially returning, and how are your expectations for Jimmie Johnson going into next year as an owner and a driver? Let me know in the comments below. Later tonight at around midnight, we'll have the NASCAR Camp World Truck Series reactions to the championship. Saturday, we got the NASCAR Xfinity Series review for the championship race, and then on Sunday, we'll have the championship reactions to the Cup race and a lot of other content on the way during the off season. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.